You've probably heard of therapy animals, whether it's seeing an animal walk through a hospital or hearing of an animal being partnered with a mental health practitioner. You might even be out about in your town and see an animal wearing a vest and wonder, is this a legitimate thing? Most pet lovers can attest to the fact that pets make us feel better, but what about the world of pet therapy? Is it a legitimate intervention? The answer is absolutely yes.
My name is Dr. Taylor Chastain Griffin, and I've dedicated my life to studying the human-animal bond. With a background as a dog trainer, mental health counselor, researcher, and therapy animal expert, my mission is to show others what happens when we become the people our dogs think we are.
Therapy animals have been studied extensively, and there's an entire field of professionals dedicated to understanding and advocating for this great work. In this video, I'm going to cover some research highlights and also talk about my personal experiences as someone working in this field. We'll cover how therapy animals impact mental health, physical health, social skills, and even educational outcomes. I've covered terminology related to this field in other videos, but for the purposes of today, I'm going to be referring to animal-assisted interventions broadly. Remember, that's the umbrella term to describe all work that therapy animals do. We could create a video diving into the effects of therapy animals in specific settings, but today we'll focus on the greatest hits. Let's start by talking about the impact of therapy animals on mental health. This is an area that's been widely studied, and when you think about interacting with a therapy animal, you probably imagine how it might make you feel. Variables that are so important to mental health have been investigated in terms of the impact of therapy animals. Variables like anxiety, stress, depression, and agitation, with findings that say mental health is benefited from interactions with therapy animals. But why? When we think about interacting with animals, there's a lot that's happening at the physiological level. There have been studies that say when we pet a dog, our cortisol or stress hormones decrease, and feel-good hormones like oxytocin, also called the love hormone, increases. Though we have some scientific understanding of the impact of animal interactions on mental health, it's my professional experience that we're just starting to scratch the surface. I've personally witnessed therapy animals interrupting clients having a panic attack. They provide a sense of grounding and a safe place to process what's going on with that client in that moment. Therapy animals are often called in moments of community crisis, and people who interact with therapy animals report lower levels of trauma in the long term. We also love that therapy animals support mental health across a large spectrum of human experiences. Whether someone has a severe mental health diagnosis or someone just needs a moment of calm to support their general wellness, therapy animals have been proven to help. It's not just mental health where therapy animals shine. There's also been studies to suggest that therapy animals can help with physical health and especially with recovery. It's very common for people like physical therapists or occupational therapists to partner with therapy animals, often being called in to assist with things like walking after surgery, which is very important to recovery. There's also been studies that look at the perception of pain as it relates to having therapy animals present, and people say they have less pain when a therapy animal is present, even to the point of requiring less medication. One of my favorite findings at this intersection is from a study that looked at the impact of therapy animals on cancer patients in radiation therapy. This study divided people into 3 different groups: one who interacted with therapy animals over 12 weeks, one who interacted with a human visitor alone, and one who engaged in reading activities. What was so interesting about this study is that it found that people who interacted with the therapy animals reported higher self-perceived health, meaning that these animals somehow had an impact on their outlook, regardless of how they were actually doing health-wise compared to the other groups. As someone who really believes in the healing power of hope, this is a finding that is so exciting to me, and I hope it's one we continue to explore in the therapy animal community. When we talk about the science behind pet therapy, we also have to acknowledge the fact that therapy animals can greatly impact the development of social skills. We know that the presence of a therapy animal can help us build rapport or relationship between 2 people, and we know that therapy animals can encourage social interaction among humans. This is very important in places like senior living communities or even teenage mental health counseling settings. As someone who has overseen court-mandated teenage girl group therapy sessions, I can tell you that the presence of my therapy animal made a big difference in encouraging social interaction between my clients. In my own work, I've also seen how therapy animals can model complex social principles through the power of the human-animal bond. I used to work in the Department of Juvenile Justice with incarcerated youth, and I would often bring my therapy animals in to teach the youth how to shape behavior using only positive reinforcement methodologies. As they would see that desired behaviors increase over time with reward, affection, and love, you would hear the youth say things like, "I never really thought about how I could shape behavior through love rather than dominance and control." I do not know of a more powerful vehicle for teaching such an important life skill than the human-animal bond. Another growing area for therapy animals is in the context of education. We not only have studies that support that therapy animals in educational settings can help with things like de-escalation, so if a child has an issue in the classroom and they have the interaction with a therapy animal, then they can more quickly assimilate back into the classroom, but there are studies that find that therapy animals can help with measurable educational outcomes. For example, reading programs to therapy animals are very popular because they're very effective. Kids tend to see therapy animals as non-judgmental listeners. They also encourage a love for reading. I have my own experiences in the Department of Juvenile Justice having teenagers work on reading skills with dogs, and the outcomes were absolutely incredible. One of my favorite things about animal-assisted interventions that's backed by science is that therapy animals have been found to help people across all aspects of life. From very young children all the way to end-of-life hospice care, therapy animals have been found to be significantly meaningful to people. We also know that therapy animals help people whether you're enjoying a sense of wellness. We see therapy animals in places like corporate wellness all the time, or if you're dealing with something really challenging in life, a medical crisis or a mental health crisis, therapy animals can help. As the field of animal-assisted interventions continues to grow, it's my hope that the public will realize that this is a science-based intervention with the ability to help people heal. It's a low-cost, holistic option that benefits both the humans and the animals involved. While there's still much to learn, especially about how to design even more rigorous research studies, what we do know is compelling. Therapy animals aren't just a feel-good novelty. They're an evidence-based intervention that has already made a profound difference in countless lives. I'm so excited for the future of this field, and I want to hear your stories. If you have an example of how a therapy animal has impacted your life, share them in the comments, and make sure you like and subscribe because I use this channel to talk about all things therapy animals and dog training in general.